Well, good evening, and thank you for coming and taking time out of your evening to learn some more about how to navigate this maze that we call high school and getting ready for college. We want to help our kids, and I'm really grateful that you are all here, and I know a number of people have signed up and they're going to watch the recording, but it's more complicated than ever before. It was difficult enough to raise teenagers, and then the pandemic happened and college changes have happened, and it's just gotten more and more complicated. So my goal tonight is to equip all of you with more information in some very important categories in college prep so that you can avoid some of the mistakes that many parents make. I'm going to introduce myself briefly. I'm Catherine O'Brien. I am a college admissions financial aid and scholarship expert. I've been doing this since 2004. I'm a mom. I have 4 sons and 2 daughters. They're all adults now. So 2 of my sons are hosting one of my other sons who's in college for his summer work. And that's been interesting to watch them all grow up together and tackle something new. I'm an author, written a number of books. So Every Catholic's Guide to College, the 2024 edition is the most recent edition, and The Ultimate Guide to Top Quality College Planning. Those are both available on Amazon. I've been a conference speaker in lots of places, including the National Catholic Youth Conference. I'm a certified college planning specialist. I'm not just somebody who used to be a teacher and thinks this would be fun, or a high school counselor and thinks that I know all of this. I have a varied educational background. So I have a bachelor's in industrial engineering from Northwestern and a master's in theology from Franciscan University. And I'm currently writing my dissertation in Catholic theology, in systematic theology. So I should have my doctorate by the end of this year. So that means I understand math and science, and I can write, and I understand the humanities. In 2004, I founded Celtic College Consultants, and I serve Catholic and non-Catholic families nationwide. I do share that I am a practicing Catholic, and that's important to me, but I respect all my families and where they're at and work to develop each student. Part of being a Catholic means that we believe that everybody's here on purpose and for a purpose. And that's how I bring that attitude into everything I do. So I'm here to facilitate the growth and development of all of our kiddos, wherever they're at on the faith spectrum. I created the College Success Program a number of years ago. My recent graduates averaged over $300,000 each in merit scholarships, which was wonderful. As I mentioned, I do college prep services from a Catholic perspective. I'm a Benedictine Oblate, and I have a Catholic radio show on KCRD-fm.org. You can listen to all my shows. There's about 100 of them. It's a Catholic invitation to know and love Jesus Christ. So I'm part of the National College Advocacy. Actually, we've changed it. It's affordability group. So we are a professional group of college preparation professionals working on the financial side and on the admission side. So bring the holistic suite of services to all of our clients. So let's get into the material. So the first thing that I said I would talk about is the college list misfit, is what I call it, because a lot of times our kids are putting them together, and maybe their high school counselors are throwing a couple names out. A lot of times our kids are just trying to figure it out on their own, or it's just a challenge. There's a lot of aspects to this, and it often leads to disappointment, which we don't expect and we don't realize is around the corner. So I'm glad you're here so I can show you some of the things we can avoid. So sometimes our kids don't get accepted to any of the schools on their list because they aren't being realistic about academic fit, or aren't aware. I've had this happen a number of times in recent years with the pandemic shifts and going test optional and a lot of things happening with some of the changes in admissions policies. There have been lots of reports of kids not getting accepted in any of their schools, and they were surprised because they expected, oh, we get into these schools because people in the past have, but things have changed. So that's definitely an awful thing to have happen. Sometimes, a lot of times, it always amazes me, but families won't know how to find out how much it's going to cost until the financial aid award packages come out in March or April of senior year, with a May 1st, or this year we had a little bit of push to May 15th or sometimes June 1st to make a decision. So they're only getting the financials a couple weeks ahead of time. And I've had parents call me with these awful things. Do we sell the house? Do we, wipe out our retirement? How do we do this? And the kids are so disappointed because at this point, the students are accepted. They've been accepted for months and they're thrilled to pieces and they really want to go. And then the family's going, how do we do this? We can't do this. So that is totally avoidable. And I will give you some strategies to avoid that. It's sometimes the colleges are not a good fit. So they get accepted, they go, and then they get there and they're miserable because they're doing poorly academically because they didn't realize that they're actually in the bottom of the pool of the kids that got in. And so they're really struggling, or they're way at the top of the pool and they're not being challenged, or it's just the wrong culture. One that a lot of kids miss are commuter campuses. So they'll go and they're like, wait a minute, everybody's gone on the weekend, every weekend. Boy, this is a drag. I hate this. So that are a number of examples of not being a good fit, which is an awful thing, of course, to have happen. Not being in the right major. It's astounding to me, like 80% of kids change their majors because they really don't know why they're at college or what they're doing. And that, when we have these setbacks and we feel a little bit like there's something wrong with us, and that's never a good thing for our kiddos. That academic misfit, that not being in the right place. The National Center for Education Statistics, actually, and the latest numbers were in 2020. They report about 80% of college students are changing their major. That's 80%. That's almost everybody. Now, changing from like mechanical engineering to electrical engineering, or from English to lit to English lit to English, not a big deal, right? Like I changed from chemistry to industrial engineering in my freshman year. So then I was fine. I had like 2 credits that didn't count. But if you decide, hey, I'm not doing so great in engineering and I'm going to move to English lit because I always like that and that's my backup plan. Well, all those math and science, those physics classes, the, Calc 2, Calc 3 aren't going to do anything to fill requirements for that English lit degree. And kids don't realize that. And the later that they change, the more that happens. And then if they transfer, it happens even more. That adds on years and money and disappointment and frustration, and never. And a lot of kids are not getting done in 4 years. The average in the US to get a bachelor's degree has been 6 years for over a decade. That's never a good thing, and it's often not the kid's fault. I have an example for you a little later on, which will surprise you, because some of the 4-year graduation rates at some of our colleges are ridiculous, very, very low. And then we all know that there's a dropout rate that's pretty significant. That is never a good thing either. That's not why we're sending our kids to college, but maybe they shouldn't have gone, or like there's a lot of things. If we look at ahead of time, we can avoid these problems and help them be more successful. Lots of strategies, ways to do that. So things that I do to help the kiddos before that, starting 8th, 9th, 10th grade, we're looking at different majors and interests and possibilities and career options, and we're creating goals. And we're also balancing extracurriculars so that they're really becoming who they are. So things are really resonating with them and lining up for the directions that make sense for that particular child to go. And then looking at the college side, making sure that there's a good fit, making sure that all the different aspects that are important to that particular student are present on the campuses on their list. And that includes the financial, all of it. Yeah, okay, let's move on to the second one. And I need to breathe because I'm realizing I'm talking way too fast. The second thing I wanted to talk about is what I'm calling essay confusion, but like, where do they fit in the applications? And really the essays are the kind of the ABCs of the application. This is the place where our kiddos get to pull themselves together and say hello and introduce themselves to the colleges. This is where in the application, the student gets to introduce themselves as a person with a personality. They get to talk about what they're going to contribute to the campus community. They get to showcase their personality, their writing style, their writing ability. And they also get to share their introspective abilities. And they can demonstrate their fit to the major or program or campus, all in the essay. This is the one place where they get to have their voice. Unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion, and sometimes this is the scenario when the essay is finished because mom and dad wrote it, which blows my mind that that's going on. Another thing that's starting to happen is kids are looking to AI, artificial intelligence, to write their essays. And that's not okay. Matter of fact, some of the colleges have added to their applications notices about using AI. One of them was sort of funny because they said we could use Grammarly. I'm like, that's partially AI. But the essay really needs to be the students, not the parents. Admissions people know the difference between a parent's voice and a student's voice. A teenager talking and reflecting versus a parent is a whole different thing. And they catch that right away. And guess what? Your student just got into the not accepted pile. And we don't mean to, we're trying to help. And our kids are procrastinating or they're not good writers. Like we have all these good intentions, but we're also conveying to them that, hey, you can't really do this whole thing by yourself. So mommy's going to do it for you or daddy's going to do it for you. And as they're stepping out into adulthood, that's not the message we really want to share. And the last thing that a lot of us I know don't think about, but it's a thing, is at the end of the college application, there's a little statement saying that all the work is mine. And the student kind of, there's a tick box and they're sort of quote signing it, saying this is my work. This reflects who I am. I did this. That doesn't mean they can't get coached and can't get mentored. I've been doing that for decades, but it's the student's work. There's a big difference between getting guided through a process and having someone else do it for you. The students need to do it for themselves. Then I want to take significant time on this next area. So is drowning in misinformation, because there's so much information out there. You can Google all kinds of things. What you can't necessarily tell is what information is reliable and what information is not. You a couple examples of the challenge that we're posed with. So this last week, there was this breaking news that the San Diego Unified School District was guaranteeing admission, or was their students were getting guaranteed admission to Cal State San Marcos, which is in a San Diego suburb, under a new agreement. Big headline news, big waves. Wow, isn't this great? It sounds wonderful. Sounds like all these underprivileged kids aren't going to get to go, or like at least they'll have the relief that they know that they're going to get into CSUSM. And there was even a comment about being able to, reliably budget because you knew your kiddo was going to be able to go there. And I'm thinking they could have done that last. We could do that before. So here's breaking this open. Today, in the past, Cal State San Marcos accepts 94% of the applicants. Like all the other CSU schools, they only accept students that complete their required courses with acceptable grades. You get less than a C, you can't get in those classes. And they're all listed out. They're called the A to G requirements. Everybody in California is very familiar with them because they get told about them constantly. Okay, so the 6% of applicants probably don't have those with the grades. I mean, it's cut and dry. So they haven't changed anything as far as who's they're accepting. Other things to know about CSUSM, over 25% of the students don't come back for the second year. That's very high. It's actually 28%. That's a lot of kiddos that don't return. But the bigger thing that they don't advertise, but it's a fact, only 23% of the kids who start or have a degree in 4 years. So are we doing those kids a favor by letting them think that they're going to get in? Because they're thinking they're going to get out in 4 years. Not necessarily. CSUSM has a track record of not doing what it takes to get the kids out in 4 years. Whether it's helping them figure out the right majors so they're not changing majors, whether they're having enough sections in the classes so that everybody can get the required sequences in order, so you have the prereqs and you're not stuck waiting a year because you need to take the second class in a 3-class series because you didn't do well enough, so you can't take the third class. All the things, they aren't doing that effectively now. So these kids, this is a great marketing ploy. It's not a boon for the students, unfortunately. So you can see how the misinformation can be tricky. And it's a little bit difficult to get to know because the rumor mill now is like, woo, this is great. And I'm sure they're going to get more applicants. Great. Is that going to be a better outcome for those kids? Not necessarily. In fact, priorities are individualized. So the right major, the right campus vibe varies by student. Your teen's best friend's college or our college or the kid's siblings' college is not necessarily the right one for this teen. As a matter of fact, I went to Northwestern undergrad, as I mentioned. I have not put Northwestern on any of my 6 children's college list because none of them are like me. That would not have been a good fit for them. So that wasn't a place that they even considered going. We would kind of joke about it sometimes. Another thing, the posted sticker price is not the same as actual price. A net price that you're going to pay is typically not sticker price. If you're a high-end net worth family, then maybe it is, but the rest of us, not usually. And the net cost varies by student. So you may think, well, big brother is paying this or sister's paying that, so it's going to be about the same, and that changes. So there's component from the parents and component from the students, and they just changed the FAFSA, as you may or may not have heard. So yeah, it's going to change by student, and it's going to change year to year. So the general thing you're going to hear on the rumor mill, somebody else goes and visits a campus and thinks it's wonderful. That's for them maybe, and they want to do musical theater, and your kiddo's looking at doing chemistry. They're not even going to be on the same part of campus. They're not going to be visiting the same things, not going to have the same professors, do anything. It might be great. The school might be awesome in one area, awesome in the other area, or awesome in both. But your friend's takeaway is not going to necessarily be your child's. So I want to tell you about enrollment management. So this started in 1976, but it's really been the last 10, 15 years that enrollment management has grown as a field. And now just about every campus has enrollment management professionals, like usually a whole department. They manage admissions and aid with business goals. So once upon a time, long, long ago in the 13th century, we started universities to educate people, actually to educate men, but happily that's been changed and now we educate everybody. Enrollment management has shifted admissions policies to meet the business goals of the colleges. Now, colleges are businesses. They do need to make enough money to pay the bills at the end of the day. I understand that. But the missions of the schools and why they existed are getting, I don't want to say compromised, but massaged, adjusted to meet different goals. Enrollment management professionals do things like utilize scholarships to attract high-income students. Everybody loves a scholarship. It's basically a coupon. So maybe I'm a family and I can pay full price, but Janie got a $5,000 scholarship here every year. Cool. But they didn't get scholarships anywhere else. It feels good to get a scholarship, doesn't it? That's a coupon, right? So now I'm being incentivized to go to that school because of that. And it works. That's why they're doing it. The focus is now the net income per student, which is a very business way of looking at this, not supporting the students in the college mission. And you'll see some pushback on a few colleges. Typically where I see it are the conservative, either liberal arts colleges, Protestant or Catholic schools. The very conservative ones tend to stay with the college mission, some of them to the point that they don't even participate in the federal aid programs. But most schools, they're looking at the net income per student and they're balancing the books. It used to be that admissions and financial aid were in different parts of different buildings. Now they often share an office. So we need to keep in mind that the college's goals are not our goals. So I'm going to give one more example, and then I am going to give you some information about where to find more information. So here's an example. Are these Catholic colleges? All of them are Catholic-run colleges, started by Catholics. So we get University of Dallas, Marquette, Notre Dame, Boston College. Boston College is actually the first place where we started having enrollment management professionals. Well, what do you mean by Catholic? Do you mean that it has the flavor of Catholicism? It has some chapels on campus? Or do you mean that the teachings of the Catholic Church are robustly integrated into every aspect of student life and dorm policies and in all the classes, in all the curriculum across? So the honoring of human life and all the pro-life teachings and all the social justice teachings are in all those humanities classes, and the great books and different things those are being prioritized. 2 and 2 is 4. There's not a lot of argument. It doesn't matter kind of what your faith is about that. But some of these other courses and perspective of what does it mean to be a human person, therefore this kind of research is appropriate, that kind of research is not. So you're going to find a variety of answers, and depending on how you're defining Catholic, you're going to have a different answer. So as a conservative Catholic, I have put together a college guide. So anyone who is looking for a strong, faithful Catholic community on campus, there are about 300 colleges. Lots of public universities have very strong Catholic communities, and then there's a couple dozen, and actually there's a couple that are just getting started that are Catholic run and are robustly Catholic. And I'll mention the couple that are getting started because I think this is pretty cool. There's St. Joseph's College in Steubenville, Ohio, and then there's San Damiano College that's going to start next year in Springfield, Illinois. And both of them combine a great books program with trades. So, carpentry, electrician, that kind of thing, which I think is phenomenal. That's a need that is met. So that is a need that hasn't been getting met. So people are going to be formed to be able to think and be people of high integrity and understand, I don't know, like the great ideas. What does it mean to be a human being, and why are we here, and those sorts of things, and do that analytical thinking and critical thinking and articulate themselves effectively and be the best plumber in town kind of thing, which is a great, I think, balance. So anyway, those are going to be getting started. But this is another example of a place where misinformation is happening. Is like, well, what does Catholic mean? So I wanted to mention the common data set. You can see what the questions are at commondataset.org. If you Google, okay, and that will tell you the questions. So the common data set is a set, it's about 50 pages long of questions that all the colleges that participate in federal financial aid have to answer and send to the Department of Education every year. You can Google the school's name and common data set. That's the best way to find a school's most recent data. They update them every October each year, and you will find all kinds of information in there. That's where the graduation rates and the size of the classes, the professor-student ratios, financial information on financial aid and how much scholarships and need-based aid and all kinds of aspects of the colleges. And I'm going to recommend to you that if you're curious about doing it that way, or using this information for yourself, College Essay Guy has a great blog article called Common Data Set. So if you Google College Essay Guy and Common Data Set, you'll find his article on, he goes pretty thoroughly about how to use the Common Data Set when you are evaluating colleges. You'll see things like percent of enrolled students who had various high school GPAs and what their test score range was, details about financial aid they awarded, and much, much more. And to give you a little bit of coaching, some things you want to know about are graduation rates. As I mentioned, the four-year graduation rate at a lot of schools is very low. I have seen single-digit graduation rates at public universities in our country. It's astonishing. Even, as I mentioned, Cal State San Marcos at 23%, I think that's appalling. I think, we should do something legislatively to change that. If we want to fix college, that's a great place to start. But graduation rates, because you want to see systematically what's happening on the university. Are people getting through? And also our peers are so important to us. So having our student in a place where people are graduating. So if more than 50% of the people are getting done in 4 years, then most people are getting done, and the tendency of the college is to get people done, is my rule of thumb. And then solvency, this is coming up more and more as a concern. It's a lot harder to find this. Solvency, whether the college is going to stay in business. We've been hearing on a regular basis of colleges closing based on the demographics, which is to say the high school graduating classes are shrinking. So we're going to have colleges closing. We're going to have colleges combining. We're going to continue to have these shifts happening. So being aware of the solvency as best we can. Forbes has college financial grades. that's probably the easiest place to access that information. But you can also look for annual reports and enrollment trends, percent of international and out-of-state students being on the rise. What that indicates, because those students are paying full rate, especially at a public university, they're all paying out-of-state rate, which is sometimes twice as much as in-state. So that's kind of where they're making bank. So if you're seeing a sharp increase in the number of percentage of those students, you know that they're needing to get more of their income from their tuition. And that can be a problem. News about lack of resources on campus or big tuition rate changes, social media posts about hiring freezes or layoffs or salary freezes or reductions. Those are all things that can be indicators that a college is not doing very well. And like I said, Forbes College Financial Grades is a pretty good metric for it. It's tough that all the information is not readily available. So that one's a little bit difficult. But I'm hoping that all of this bits and pieces of information can help you see the amount of misinformation that's out there and how careful we need to be with the rumor mill when it comes to the colleges and what we know about what's actually happening and what's true. So what do we need? We need to start with prayer and reliable sources. So the common data set, college solvency information, collegedata.com, I believe it is, also is a place to access some of the common data set. It's not entirely clear to me when they update their database, but it does have a lot of the relevant information and you can look at it by college. But not getting information from other people's opinions, your friends' impressions, and what admissions tells you. Right, because the other name for the admissions department is the marketing department. And so, as you probably have been on some campus tours, they all have a script. You know, you got the students walking backward, pointing around, you know, reciting their script and pointing to various buildings around the campus and maybe letting you see a dorm room and letting you see a lecture hall and this kind of thing. That is very curated information. They're not going to tell you that their graduation rate is 23% or that, you know, the big whoop-de-doo scholarship that they keep telling you that they only give one a year and they have, you know, 8,000 students every freshman class and one kid gets this. They're not going to tell you all those things. They're going to show themselves in the best light. So you have to take it, what admissions tells you, with a grain of salt. You are going to get some valuable information on that tour, but you're not going to get all of the information on the tour. So just be aware and be savvy, and some more due diligence is in order. And remember, keeping in mind what we talked about earlier about your student, his or her particular interests and needs, obviously they're not going to cover that on a tour. But you need to be aware of, well, for this one of my kids, these things are the most important. For this other one, those things are the most important. You know, and if your family is anything like mine, you've got a variety of kiddos. I've got one in computer science. I have one doing theology and psychology. I have another one who's an artist. Like, they're all over the map. And so what was important for my artist was completely different than what's important for my programmer. And then my theology, philosophy, psychology kiddo is a whole different thing, right? So being aware of who our kids are and what their strengths and weaknesses are, it's going to be another layer of filter for us as to what is important. I had a great email from a parent who is not able to come here tonight and was asking about, what do we do with my performing arts student? How does that work? Because parents need to be more involved. Yes, because there are auditions and different events you need to travel to that I obviously can't do. And so I was sharing with her what those special needs are and kind of what the roles of the parents are there and what the roles of a consultant are with the other side of it. Because there's often artistic statements and things like that that I help with the writing, but I don't help prepare for auditions, things like that. Okay, let's continue our little journey here. This one always surprises me. If we put our head in the sand, maybe it'll go away, right? It doesn't really work. And this is not fair. I'll just say that up front. It is not fair that salaries have gone up a little bit over the decades and college prices have skyrocketed. It is unreal. So every year or so, it's usually a dad comes up to me very forcefully. I paid my way through college. My kids are going to work their way through college. It's what it's gonna be. And I always do my best to explain to this parent that the playing field that they played on is not the same as the one now, that your student can't make enough. And there's some, Pell Grant used to cover your tuition and your books and some of your room and board. And sometimes people would get all of those and they'd have little money left over to, buy a pizza or something. Where now we know that full Pell Grant is like $6,900 at your local state school. That might cover tuition, but at most places, room and board costs a lot more than tuition. And then books are ridiculous. And then you've got lab fees and administrative fees and computer fees and this and that and the other. And suddenly you realize, oh, but even the Pell Grant doesn't cover anything near like it used to, and the prices have gone up exorbitantly, because that's just for your local state school that has part of your tax money is paying for that, so that's got a reduced tuition rate in state. All right. Hoping for scholarships is not planning. Typically, that's everybody's first financial question to me is, how does my child get scholarships? And they're all thinking like the Walmart scholarships or the Nordstrom scholarship or the Coca-Cola scholarship. And again, you get a lot of press for those. They're big dollars. That's wonderful. However, 90+% of scholarship monies come from the colleges and universities themselves. So this whole piece of the financial side is integral to the college selection. Which colleges are we going to apply to? Where do we have a serious shot of getting scholarship money? And for which scholarships and all of that, and actually getting into the nitty-gritty a little bit. There are net price calculators on college campus or college websites. Some of them will ask questions, which usually surprise parents, about GPAs and test scores. If they do, that means that they've put together in their net price calculator an awareness of the scholarship offerings that they have, the major ones. So then you'll get a more accurate estimate. But a lot of them just use the same one as the College Board, and it's pretty generic. So, and then scholarships often have special applications and or deadlines. So some colleges, the application for admissions counts as a scholarship application. Awesome, that's easy peasy. Others, it's like the early bird gets the worm. Are you paying attention? After you apply, then you can look at their database of scholarships, and then you can do a special scholarship application, or one for each scholarship will have its own application. And so if you're not paying attention and you don't do all that work after you've applied to the school, you're going to miss out. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky. It definitely requires some effort, but it can be well worth it. You should know your numbers early. So if you are at all familiar, it used to be the EFC, the expected family contribution. Now it's the SAI, the Student Aid Index. You can use an estimator. So the National College Affordability Group that I belong to, we have an SAI estimator, so you can know your numbers. Every college by federal law has to have a net price calculator on its website. A few of them make them obvious. Most of them hide them, but they all have the little search window. So if you're at your prospective college's website and you put in the little search window, net price calculator, you'll find it. Again, they have to have one on there. It doesn't have to be a good one. So if it takes 20, 30 minutes and they're asking all kinds of questions, great, you're going to get a good estimate. If they only ask you a few questions, you're not going to get a very good estimate. So the SAI, your basically expected family portion, is going to it's going to derive from 4 factors: the parent's income, parent's assets, the student's income, and the student's assets. Okay. When we say income, what we mean is, for example, for the class of 2025, they will start college in 2025, and they will apply for financial aid starting in October of 2024 during their senior year, and they will use their 2023 tax returns. So that's where you're going to get your income from. Your assets are of the day you fill out the FAFSA. And there are only certain ones, like On the FAFSA, your home equity doesn't count. So some things don't count. It's mostly going to be your liquid portfolio assets. Life insurance doesn't count, home equity doesn't count. Now, some of the schools also require the profile form. Those schools tend to have less merit aid, more need-based aid, and a lot more of it. And that form is going to ask for 3 years of income information. So be prepared. We need to know our numbers early because we don't want to be disappointed and we don't want to be super in debt. So I'm going to make a couple comments here about student loan debt. The average now is up to 38,000 this is just of the students who take loans. So this doesn't count all the kids that come out with 0 loans. The vast majority of that debt happens in year 5 and year 6 and year 7 and year 8. Okay, so doing the preparatory work in high school to figure out, why do I want to go to college? What's my major? What's my career goal? What are the things I'm looking for? So I can figure out which programs and majors and fit is the right place for me to become a flourishing adult, equipped to work in a field. That will pay off because I'm going to be done in 4. And if I'm adjusting, very slight. Yeah, I'm already in a grouping of majors with similar requirements, and I'm going to make a small adjustment from math to applied math, something like that. And so my classes are still going to qualify. I'm still going to get done in 4. Okay. So that 5th and 6th year, those are super expensive. Your Pell Grants will go to 6 years, but a lot of your other aid and scholarships, they're done after 4. You'll see on a scholarship award letters, it'll say that it's good for 8 semesters or good for 4 years, renewable for 4 years, or it's a 1-year thing. So you have to look at the fine print. What do you do when you've changed your major from engineering? It was way too hard to, I went to English literature. Great. I'm, doing gangbusters, but now I need to do a 5th year. After 4 years, are we just going to quit? No, we dig deeper, right? And we take loans and get it done because we're so close. So that's kind of the catch-22. And then the average parent loan is $34,000. So the PLUS loans, which is parent loan for undergraduate studies, which is also used by graduate students for their studies, you can take up to the cost of attendance. At some of our colleges, that's over $80,000 a year. So you can absolutely destroy yourself financially. The system will let you. If your credit is really bad or you've had a bankruptcy, there's a few situations where they won't allow you to take parent loans, then your student can take $4,000 of additional debt each year, which doesn't nearly cover what most parents contribute. So please know your numbers early and do the planning early to figure out a way that's going to make sense for your family to get through this process. The students equipped, the finances are there, it's all going to work together. Because it is far better to change your major 14 times as a high school student than it is to be adding a year or 2 to college. Or I have a student that I'm aware of that wavered during college, had some things happen, and has decided to continue pursuing medical school. Great. So she's got a degree and she's going back to college to take some more undergraduate classes because she hasn't taken all the requirements for medical school. This 5th year is going to be very expensive. Okay, the last misstep, delaying or foregoing needed help. So when we do it ourselves, this is what typically happens. And this isn't my opinion. This is what comes out of the data. Most kids apply to 1 to 2 colleges near their house. So they don't really look around. They don't really know. They just go someplace close. The average, as I mentioned, is 6 years to graduate. 8 to 10 years is not uncommon. And there's extended time often is because they have to go part-time and work. And so they just can't take as many classes. We know that students are changing their majors 3 or more times. And as I mentioned, the National Center for Education Statistics reports that about 80% of our kids are changing their major. So talk about the confusion, because parents are thinking that the high school counselors are talking to the kids about it. And they're not. They're not. High school counselors are there to make sure the kids graduate, deal with all the IEPs and special ed needs, and deal with the police and those issues. That's 95% 5% of their jobs, and they're overworked. The student counselor ratios that are double and triple what is recommended. It's pretty crazy what's being asked of those people, and God bless them for doing all that they do, but they're just incredibly overworked. So nobody's really talking about this in high school. And then you get to college and you get your academic advisor. Well, a lot of schools offer a freshman advisor, which is going to get through your general ed requirements. But then you have an advisor in your major, and that person knows about your major. They don't know you, and they don't know that that's a good major or a bad major. And then you decide to jump ship and go to another major, and you're starting over with somebody new. There's really not a whole lot going on for kids to figure out what they want to do. And the career centers are set up really to help with getting interviews and that kind of thing. So most of them are understaffed as far as trying to handle this, figuring out what you want to do when you grow up question. That's just such a key question. And the colleges, are they really invested in helping? They're making bank when the kids are staying the 5th and 6th year. I mean, I hate to say it, but as a business, they're making more revenue when the kids don't finish. When they need 120 credits, say, to graduate, and they end up with 150, well, the college gets paid for the 150, and they still get out the bachelor's degree. So on the business end, they're not so motivated to help kids. Stressful holidays with looming deadlines. So a lot of the deadlines are December 1st. Well, that wipes out Thanksgiving. Another big deadline date is January 1st. There goes Christmas. And so I've heard of many, many distressed parents where people are screaming and they're upset, and the kids are hiding in their room because they've got to write their essays, and it's Thanksgiving break and they were busy and they didn't do it. A lot of kids, most kids miss priority program and scholarship deadlines because they happen early. And if you're not paying attention, you don't know what they are, oops, you missed it. Or as I mentioned, some of the schools, they drip it out, right? You apply, and then you can look at this other thing, and then you apply for this other. And so if you're not aware and on top of all of those deadlines, you're going to miss. And then aid applications. Now the changes in the FAFSA are eliminating a lot of the errors in a sense. They're making it on the user end, but the Department of Education has a number of serious errors, computational errors with the FAFSA as the first rollout, and they're not going to get them done. So it's going to hit again next year. So eventually aid application errors should go down. And then if you do the profile form, that's a whole different game. And as I mentioned, debt is high. So this is what's happening when people are doing it on their own. To shift gears for just a second. Gallup and Purdue did a poll a few years ago of a whole bunch of alumni. Basically, the question was, does it matter where you went to undergrad? Does it impact your lifetime happiness? And what they found was that no, it doesn't. And that the happiest college graduates basically take advantage of what college has to offer. They find a professor who gets them excited about learning. They find professors who care about them as a person. They find a mentor who may or may not be a professor. The happiest students worked on a project that lasts more than one term. And they get an internship and a job in their field, and they participate in extracurriculars. These are the kids that actually went and got into what was going on campus. Not the party scene, but they made good connections. They got mentored. They had people who invested in them and helped them develop as human beings and develop as scholars and effective people in their fields. And they got to do projects that made an impact that lasted a long time. And they had to go through that whole process of defining the project and all of the troubleshooting that happens and handling the problems and the things that come up. And there's a huge growth that happens and something that's sustained longer than one term, because life happens as longer than one term. So those kids are really engaged. And then internship and jobs in their field, because they're actually applying what they're learning as their students. And then they're getting to have fun. I mean, when else in our life are we around a whole bunch of other young people without a lot of responsibilities? So the opportunities, like I know a young lady who's learning to play lacrosse. Never played it before. She's having a blast. I know a young man who always wanted to do theater, and just the way his high school situation was, he was homeschooled in a small town. You just didn't have that opportunity. He's absolutely having a blast doing theater. He's at a small liberal arts college and he's getting to do theater. He doesn't compete with a lot of acting majors, and he's having the time of his life, and he's seeing ways that he can use those skills in his proposed professional fields. Because we all have to pretend sometimes, so he's recognizing that that would be very helpful. So all of these things make life at college so wonderful, and that's what we want for our kiddos. How do we get there? Well, I want to let you know a little bit about my college success program. This is not a long commercial because I hate when webinars do that, so I'm not doing that. But I will tell you that the 3 pillars of college success are premier student preparation. My kids know who they are, they've developed as leaders, they've demonstrated they've figured out what they're interested in, and they've dug deeply into it. They're ready, they understand what's going on, they're ready to articulate who they are in person, in an interview, on a tour, meeting with a professor, visiting campus, through emails, writing their essays. They know who they are, and they're ready when they get to campus because they know what they're looking for and the kinds of opportunities that they know they thrive in. Savvy college selection with all these different aspects of college selection in it. That's key. And then abundant funding. The numbers have to work. If the student's ready, and we've got great colleges and the money's not there, it doesn't work. We've got money and the student's not ready, doesn't work. We've got money and the student's ready and we're at the wrong school, doesn't work very well. So all 3 together. Professional experience guidance for teens and parents. You can relax. I've been doing this for 20 years. We're going to meet at least once a month. Typically 8th, 9th, 10th grade, 11th grade is once a month, depends on what's happening. When we get into summer, we're meeting every week, twice a week, sometimes daily, just depends on what the needs are. And we're writing essays, we're meeting a lot. It's personalized career major program search process. It's all about this particular student and what his or her strengths are, what their needs are, what works for them, and seeing the light bulb go on inside of them of, ooh, this is me, and that really resonates with me, and this is important to me because, and they can list it. They know who they are, and they just, it all fits together. College selection, I do research and guidance and make recommendations, and we look at net costs. And parents sign off when we're at the end of junior year and we've got our list. Everybody knows, okay, this is the schools, and we've had that cost conversation if that's a consideration, and everybody's good. And then we're applying. So I'm organized, keep things on track all the way through. We do financial aid and college funding strategy sessions as needed for families and more. I have walked kids through all kinds of things: divorces, deaths in the family, friends, people moving, all kinds of injuries, all kinds of difficulties, and being able to help them sort through and continue forward as needed and get support. Tempus fugit, it's Latin for time flies. We blink and, we're pregnant, woohoo, and we have a baby, wonderful. And then, oh my goodness, they're driving away to college. Just don't blink. Pretty much just don't blink. I have that in here twice, sorry. So let me tell you a little bit about some of the people that I've worked with. So the young lady here under results, she was not a good student, but she was a great artist. So I helped her figure it out, and that letter that she's holding, because she got scholarship money at a number of art institutes and was thrilled to pieces. But when we met, she was going to like a special tutoring session place so that she could not flunk her classes and all of that, and really struggling, and found places where she could thrive and do the things that she could do well and continue to grow in those. My young Eagle Scout down there at the bottom, what a wonderful young man. And he thought knew what he wanted to do, and we bounced around a bit, and he went on a little bit of a journey and figured it out, and now he's doing very well as an undergraduate. I've enjoyed working with Boy Scouts, both male and female Boy Scouts. 3 of my sons are Eagle Scouts, and the program is a good one, but it's a delight to see them take those things that they've learned and move them forward. The young lady at the bottom is one of my moms, and they ended up actually moving out of the country while their daughter was finishing high school, and was able to help her continue with her journey and be successful. The young man in the middle, he is now a focus missionary. Delightful guy, had a whole big whiteboard kind of spreadsheet thing that he created as he was analyzing the colleges he'd gotten accepted to. And then the last young lady was a delight to work with, another one of my Southern California kids. And She, yeah, was one of the many pandemic kids and, built a dance bar in her living room so she could continue her dance classes and lessons and things while she was stuck at home. Kids do amazing things with some support and encouragement. So it's just been a delight. So, um, so I want to invite you to get started on the path to success. I want to invite each of you to schedule a consultation to get your questions answered, get personalized recommendations, and to get started in the process. As I said, I work, start with kids 8th, 9th, 10th grade is ideal, sometimes 11th grade. 10th grade is it depends. 9th grade, I can help them transition to high school and start into extracurriculars. 10th grade, we're moving into leadership. Both of those years, we're looking at majors and campuses and getting an idea of what we want to do. So the 11th grade, we're finalizing that. And we know whether or not we need to take those big tests and all those things. And we're figuring out which courses as we're selecting classes in the upper grades. And then as soon as 11th grade is done, they're done with the AP exams and their finals, we're writing essays and getting things going. I will be emailing you with a copy of with a link to the recording. And then I have a new calendar situation. So you can email me to schedule a consultation, or you can wait and I'll send you the Calendly link. And they are professional consultations, so there is a fee for those. But I've never had anybody be unhappy about that because you're getting to pick my brain for an hour. There's a lot in there. So, and we get to have that personalized conversation. And I don't typically do Q&A of these kinds of talks because the questions are so particular and personal. So we get into our particular kids and our particular financial situation. I think that it's just better to handle those privately. So that is what I do. Another couple examples of results, Fatima and Sarah, their parents had come to the US fleeing a regime, and they needed full rides. They both wanted to go to medical school, and there were other children in the family, so they needed full rides undergrad. So between the two of them, they were offered 5, and they were set up. They're now both in medical school. Chris was a lovely young man. He got a full ride for leadership undergrad and was able to do some amazing things. And then he got a full tuition scholarship for law school. So he is currently finishing law school. Luke was a tough kid. I worked with him early in my career, and his parents said, well, we're getting divorced, so could you help him get the process? We don't want him to lose traction on this process because he's got some great prospects, but we're distracted. And so I helped him stay sane, stay in his own lane, do what he needed to do, and he got a full athletic ride to college. Cece was a great example of why starting early was good. So she and her twin sister both worked with me, and the 2 girls couldn't have been more different. And the parents were thrilled because I didn't treat them the same at all. But Cece, she was so gung-ho about what she wanted to do. And she wanted to be business and get a 5-year MBA and do all this stuff. And then she wanted to be a pharmacist and do the 5-year PhD or PharmD programs. And as we were evaluating, she's coming to know herself better and better. And she realized that she wanted to go into psychology, which she did, and got into the Psych Honor Society and did graduate work. And now she is a professional therapist and has been doing that for a number of years. But just a great example of being unafraid to just plunge around and figure out what she wanted to do. And she would apologize like, oh, Miss O'Brien, we need to start over. And I'm like, it's fine, perfectly great. And we'd throw out all the research we'd done. At the same time, each iteration, she knew herself better. And so we'd come into the next analysis of the next possible thing she was interested in, knowing more about who she was and where she wanted to go and what the right fit was going to be as she was considering a completely different field. And then Samantha, I just finished working with her, and she had more acceptances and scholarships than she knew what to do with. I actually had a couple of those this year that was just a hoot. The list was long, and they're like, wow, you've got a lot of really excellent choices here. What do you want to do? And that was just a delightful situation to have. But we spent a lot of time figuring out schools, and she ended up going to a school she never would have considered. But it was a little school that just suited her to a T. And she was already doing some pretty amazing things. She's my kiddo with the pink hair this last year, and just a phenomenal young lady in her field. and was able to set her up with a school that's really going to mentor her, and she's just going to flourish. And, she kind of went like, okay, I'll go visit them, we'll see, I don't think so. I think, and she came back and was like, oh my gosh, in spades. And she went on and on and on. So, it's kind of fun to have that opportunity to introduce kids in situations that like, you're going to flourish here, I think. Why don't you go check it out? So I've had kids go get accepted in all kinds of schools. So Harvard, Northwestern, U Dallas, Penn, Art Institute of Chicago, Notre Dame, Michigan, Steubenville, U of I, Cornell, Benedictine. So kind of the gamut. Some art schools, IU, Bloomington for musical theater, et cetera. So had kids do all kinds of things, NYU. This is a small representative sample of where I've had kids go and be accepted. And the clock is ticking, so please continue to get information and be equipped parents. I'm so delighted that you took the time tonight to listen and hopefully learn a number of things so you can avoid some of these pitfalls on the journey to college. As I said, I will be emailing you in the next couple of days with the recording and a link to my calendar so you can schedule a consultation, or you can always send a follow-up email with a simple question. So thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Have a good night, everyone.